Boom!
Hi! It's been a while, hasn't it? It's officially spooky month, which means I'm back from the grave, here to give you some fun TF2 content that was technically supposed to be here last month, but I'm not very good at this YouTube thing, you know? Anyways, TF2 is a game that's near and dear to my heart. I have probably the most hours on of any game on my computer, and the only game that beats it of all time is Pokemon Platinum, but there's no way to check how many hours I played that over the a lot of years I've played it. But as much as I love this game, I only started playing in 2020. Meaning, as long as I've played this game, there have been no updates that add new content. Like, I'll give out this. As of recently, they've fixed a lot of bugs, and I guess also kind of ruined the economy for like one day and then fixed it immediately. But I don't do trading, so that's not important to me. And while fixing the bugs that exist in the game currently is a little more important than, you know, adding new stuff that they'll just break, I thought, while we wait for more new content, if it ever arrives, it's been 5 years, Valve, I would use my mediocre art skills and minimal knowledge of how games work to design new weapons for the TF2 classes, taking each of their weapon slots and making one new weapon for it to make a hypothetical weapon set. Now, even though this would be a weapon set, this would not mean that all these would function perfectly together. In fact, some would make other weapons completely useless, but, you know, Valve's no stranger to making weapon sets that don't work together at all. Valve can do it, I can do it. There's also a reason I've not added new content to this channel for a long time.
That's a joke, lads.
I'm also trying a new format, so if you like it, tell me I did good, and if you don't like it, I don't know, call me a slur. Don't actually call me a slur, I get enough of that on Team Fortress 2. Yeah, anyways, if you like the video, there'll be a little end screen card right here for videos very similar to it. On to the first weapon! Despite being trans, I can't do transitions. So the idea for this one is heavily inspired by the Man's Guide series by Soundsmith, specifically the Big Earner Extras video, where he talks about how Spy could use a knife that drastically changes the playstyle, and he suggested a rapier that can headshot, and I like that idea, so I decided to use it, but taking a little different route. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time I recycled an idea from a YouTuber I like, but we'll get to that when we talk about the mechanics. First, we're talking about the design. As I said, it's based primarily on a rapier, specifically the cup guard ones. I also took inspiration from sabers in the handle, because the little handguard connects here instead of here, mostly because I thought it looked pretty, which is a lot of the reasons for most of these designs. It's also adorned with those gems that you see on swords in the media. Even though they have no practical function, they look very, very pretty. I decided to name it the Argon Chariot. French-speaking viewers, please don't crucify me. Argon is the French word for silver, at least according to Google Translate. And Chariot is me just trying to say chariot in a French accent. And of course, the name is reference to Polnareff's Silver Chariot from JoJo, because it's not a Ring Around Me video if I don't mention JoJo at least once. But don't worry, this is the most blatant as the references get, because like, it's a French man with a sword. How can I not call a French man with a sword something relating to Silver Chariot? Like, come on. Now, let's talk upsides. They consist of two primary features. The first I already mentioned a bit, being it can headshot instead of backstabbing, which on its own is kind of a trade-off, because you're sacrificing the big back hitbox, which is literally half of a player's hitbox, for a smaller head hitbox that you can hit from any angle. This would also allow you to get around razorbacks, because technically it's not a backstab. The second feature would make you kind of a sort of shittier demo knight. Holding that primary fire would charge a meter, kind of like the classic, and upon release it would send you charging forward, with the distance you go, of course, being how close the meter was to full. This would help fix Spy's main issue of not being able to close gaps, because if someone's just out of reach as Spy, you're probably never going to get that backstab unless they just suddenly decide to stop for no reason. The charge would also send you farther than you would walk, just so, you know, you can actually close that gap. And another thought I have is maybe give it the increased range Demo Man's sword have, because like it's also a sword, so it makes sense. It'd also make it kind of easier to hit the head hitbox. Now these, at least on paper, are some pretty strong and unique abilities, so of course we're going to need to balance them with some downsides. Although I'll admit the downsides, I'm a lot less sure about than the upsides, and this kind of goes for every weapon, some more than others. But some possible ones I thought of are, instead of an insta-kill like a backstab, it'd have a sort of set amount of damage like Sniper's headshot. Maybe more than a sniper, because you're also putting yourself at risk by getting close to someone to do it, rather than from another country. The damage could also be based on how long you've charged for. So as the meter fills, so does the damage you do, with maybe a full charge also being an insta-kill, as long as you hit the headshot, of course. Or maybe keep the insta-kill as long as you hit the hitbox, but if you hit anywhere else, it has greatly reduced damage. That way incentivize hitting the headshot, otherwise you're kind of fucked. Kinda like how the Rap Assassin isn't incentivized to be used as a melee. The charge, I think, would also have to have some sort of cap you have to hit before you can actually charge forward, just to prevent people from spamming it, which is kind of an issue with most Spy new weapons. But yeah, those are my ideas for the knife, or I guess sword. I mean, a sword's just kind of a big knife, right? You just take a knife, but make it more knife. Now, if you didn't know, designing and drawing guns is really fucking difficult. I don't know why, my brain just can't get around it. So instead of thinking of an original idea for a gun, I just did what Valve did for a few TF2 weapons and heavily referenced a weapon from another game. And so when looking for games that have revolvers, I remembered a certain game that I haven't played in a long, long time, and sadly many of you have probably never played. It's a little game called Now, Now, I have a video planned to talk a bit about this game, but not very in-depth, so I'm gonna recommend a video from my friend Biff the Bear, who did a great review and overview of the game, and also a really funny video of him and some friends fucking around in the game.
Very nice people.
We're just here spreading the good word.
Of Jesus Christ, our Savior.
Of Jesus Christ.
Now, if you guys don't mind, do you know where some emulators are? We need to summon Satan.
Wait.
We're summoning Satan to bait out Jesus Christ so we can catch him in a Pokeball.
What the fuck?
So yeah, those will be in the little iCard next to here if I figure out how to do that, because YouTube's kind of stupid. Anyways, the game has a pretty neat weapon system, at least in my opinion, where the more you use a weapon, the more variants of it you unlock, and the more ammo variants you unlock. And you can mix and match different weapon types with different ammos. But sadly, my favorite gun, I can't mix with my favorite ammo, so I just did it in TF2 instead. This is the Chain Reaction, an almost one-for-one recreation of the Codwall conversion chain pistol, but with some added details to make it more Team Fortressy. I also changed the colors to match the sword, which will kind of go for every weapon in this set. I wanted to give them a very consistent silver and gold color palette with a light brown. And it's also, I believe, the only weapon in this entire set that doesn't have green accents. So do with that information what you will. But yeah, its visual concept was surprisingly easy to come up with, despite being arguably the hardest to draw. Now for its features, obviously it would have a lot more ammo, but if it had to be less than that for balance reasons or even more, well, TF2 is no stranger to guns not matching how much ammo you load into them, but either way, it'd have more than 6 bullets. It'd also fire a lot faster, being kind of like the Spy's version of the panic attack. I think it would take you about the same amount of time to unload the clip as it would for stock, so if we go with the 18 bullets thing, that'd be 3 times as fast, and each bullet that hits would also apply afterburn. This is very much a, oh shit, I'm in trouble, start firing right away gun. Now without penalties, this would obviously just become a new version of the old Enforcer. So to balance these, it would have a few hefty downsides. First being drastic damage fall off for both damage and afterburn, where after a certain distance, the afterburn doesn't even apply. After all, this gun is meant to be used only up close and not be the old Ambassador. But we also don't want this to kind of be a diet minigun, so each actual hit scan bullet would do a lot less damage, because this is mostly just acts as a deterrent with the afterburn, and possibly get some revenge kills, so when you die, you take them down with you. I don't know, I'm not a game balancer, I am an artist, so if any of these sound like they're too drastic of a downside, tell me down below. But have one more downside. It would take a lot longer to load. Maybe keep the amount of time the same as the fire rate, so if you double the fire rate, you double the reload time, and etc, whatever number we choose. I think I said 3 times as fast, was it? So yeah, that way, even if it's easy to spam one clip, you still have to retreat and have good positioning in order to reload the next one. Because again, we don't want the old Enforcer. But let's lean out of the aggressive stuff real quick and go for a weapon that has a more passive style. This is the concealed carry. It's based primarily on those old reversible watches from the 1930s. You know, one that you could flip over to conceal the face of. Reminds me of a certain man with a concealed face. But of course, it's not a real watch, so instead of having a little clock face, it has a little screen that tells you how long you have before you put with your pants down. There's also a mistake in the drawing that I didn't notice until I was already shading and it was way too late to fix. But this little dial here, yeah, that would prevent this from closing. You know, the primary feature of a reversible watch where it closes to hide the face? It's supposed to be on top right here. But you know, I think it fits because it's not supposed to be a real watch anyways. It's just a spy gadget made to look like an everyday item, you know, like James Bond would have. So I think it still fits, even if it was an accident. And concealed carry is a phrase talking about carrying a concealed weapon. I guess the watch technically isn't a weapon, it's more of a tool that lets him use his other weapons. You know, it goes in a weapon slot, so I'm gonna count it as a weapon. The watch I came up with is not meant to partner with the rest of the weapon set. This is mostly just supposed to be a side grade to the stock watch, kind of like all the other watches aren't meant for any certain playstyle, but have their place in different sets. I also deviated from the normal spy watch thing of 1 upside for 1 downside, and instead gave it 2 upsides and 2 downsides, which I feel complement this playstyle very well. We'll talk a bit about the downsides first, just because I feel they're important to talk about first with a watch so you know what you're sacrificing or you know what you're getting. The first, that cloaking and decloaking take a lot longer, about 1 to 2 seconds, which doesn't seem like a lot, but remember with stock, you're already unable to fire for 2 whole seconds after you decloak, and 2 seconds is a long time in a first-person shooter game, especially if you happen to decloak at the wrong place at the wrong time. And the next would be that when you're using this, you walk, I'd say 2/3 of the spy's normal walking speed. It'd definitely be above 50% of the walking speed, but either way, you'd be walking a lot slower, so that way, even if you're invisible the same amount of time as stock, you can't go nearly as far without picking up any ammo. But this comes with some amazing upsides. The first, and probably the primary selling feature of this is, when fully invisible, you walk walk straight through other players. Not their bullets or projectiles or anything like that, you're still affected by all those, but as long as you're fully cloaked, you can walk through any player, no matter what team they're on. This will help with that thing that all spies have on certain maps where there's just a choke point and a wall of people that you can't get past without bumping into someone, but you still have to be careful because if you happen to decloak inside someone, you just explode like you were telefragged. The second one would be a completely silent decloak, or at least one that's quieter. This way it rewards the good positioning of getting where you are despite sluggishly trotting along. You're not killed because you activate someone's fight or flight response by hearing this sound. Besides that, it would work pretty much identical to stock, same amount of time invisible, pick up metal recharges it, you know, just stock watch with a few extra features. Yeah, I think this is probably the most balanced one out of all of them, that I'm definitely most sure about how it works. Yeah, I recorded this out of order, so editing rows, please fix that. Thank you so much. Oh my god, I love you. You're doing so good. Please don't hate me for having this recording be over in half an hour. So for this, I want to design a ranged sapper, but not the kind you see in every other fan-made sapper, which is normally something you throw, kind of like in Meet the Spy, because let's face it, a throwable sapper would be really fucking cool, but lord knows there's already so many of those on the internet. So instead, I feel like this would just be something that you place down, and it affects things in a range. But we'll talk about that when we talk about the functions. For now, let's talk actually about the design. This is the Mafia's white hat. Its name alludes, of course, to the Mafia, you know, a bunch of shady criminals, kind of like the Spy, except a little less suave and a bit more direct, as well as white hat hackers, which are hackers that companies hire to test their cybersecurity. Its name also alludes to a specific hacker known as Mafia Boy, who in 2000 basically shut down the internet. Like literally at 15 years old, this man shut down Yahoo, Amazon, and eBay in 2000. It's a pretty cool story, and an article will either be linked below or a video if I can find one. Its design is based mostly on those really old TVs that were just a box with antennas. Didn't even have buttons, just 2 dials to change the channel and volume. It also has a single green light on top, as well as 3 more above the screen that kinda resemble a cell phone signal, just upside down. And of course on the screen, a ghastly face resembling electricity stares into your soul, like a sinister progen without all the fur and inability to make toast. And of course, as it doesn't go directly on a building, it has these little stands to keep it going upright. As I alluded to before, the sapper is range-based. When you deploy it, a little radius of its range displays around you, like an engineer with a sentry. And while it does take time for it to begin affecting a building, the closer you place it to a building, the faster its effects take hold. But that also means the harder it is to hide it. It also doesn't actually damage the buildings. Instead, it makes them all function differently in a way that negatively affects the enemy team. A dispenser under the effects of the Mafia's white hat will not resupply its ammo, as well as possibly damage any player using it for too long. A sentry affected will also not resupply its ammo, but also have ammo drained over a period of time. As well as long as it's under the effects of the Mafia's white hat, it'll just dry fire at enemies, but still target them nonetheless, losing ammo the longer it shoots. And teleporters in range that are used by players that aren't an ally spy will close up like a bear trap and deal massive damage. Not enough to kill even a kunai spy, but enough to make someone go, oh shit. It also wouldn't alert an engineer that this is happening, so they'd have to notice that, hey, my buildings are acting pretty fucking weird, which let's face it, if they're in a nest, they're gonna notice pretty soon. Also, as soon as it starts affecting any building, the green light on top will start blinking. With the more buildings it's affected, the longer and brighter it flashes. And that's all I know for certain about this. Unlike all the others, I had a decent idea of what could possibly use to balance this. Of the other weapons, I've had an idea that is either certain about or just slightly unsure. These, I'm just not sure if they'd even be good for balancing sake. But I'm gonna list out the ideas I had in no particular order, and I'm also not saying that all these downsides would apply. These are just some possible downsides you can mix or match to add to this. The first idea is the sapper would have a limited lifespan, that it only lasts for a certain amount of time as long as it's affecting a building, with maybe the more buildings it's affecting, the shorter the lifespan is, and after a certain amount of time, it breaks automatically. As well as the sapper would be on a cooldown, and you can only have one at once. So after you place one, you have to wait a few seconds before you can place down another, and as soon as you place down another, your first one breaks. Another idea I had is that maybe any class could break this with a few melee swings, with engineers and homewrecker pyros breaking it in just one. That way, if a free-to-play NG is really struggling against this, and a lone heavy happens to wander by and see it, he can just bap. And if any of these happen to be too hefty of downsides, I don't think they do, but another upside I thought of that I'm unsure about is maybe after the limited lifespan, once it's destroyed, it explodes, damaging any buildings that were affected for a small amount. Again, not enough to destroy, but enough for an engineer to go, oh shit, my buildings are on fire. Again, I'm really unsure about these last few aspects I mentioned. Yeah, feel free to call this one stupid or brilliant, whichever you feel. I'm personally leaning towards stupid. Fun, but stupid. But yeah, that covers all the weapon slots. Wait, you're saying there's another one that exists? But the loadout screen only shows 4. It's not that there's a possible secret 5th weapon that the spy has access to, but only during the actual match. Oh wait! Oh yeah, while this doesn't have a proper item slot on the loadout screen, in-game you are able to use it as any other weapon or tool, so I decided to make something to replace it, because well, it's my video, fuck you. And instead of doing what a lot of people suggested of just completely replacing it with something like a hologram, which to be fair, I feel would work better with an invisibility watch going invisible making a hologram versus now there's just 2 spies to kill. I decided just to take the base disguise kit and add some features to make it different. This is the curtain call. Its name alludes to, of course, a curtain call, when all the actors at the end of a theater show just go out and do their bows and shit. I mostly just wanted to allude to theater and costume changes, as well as something coming to an end, which will make sense later. Based primarily on a Russian cigarette case, specifically this one I found from, I think, 1970, but I could be wrong on that. Besides that, it has some random technical doodads, a few buttons, a weird wavy screen that looks kinda like the Rescue Ranger, and a dial that looks like those kitchen timers that we all have, but I have no idea where they came from. The disguise kit would function similar to stock, where as soon as you equip a disguise, you move at the speed and look like that class on the other team. But it would be instant like the Your Eternal Reward. No smoke or sound. This would also give you a very small amount of damage resistance, so long as you are disguised and not invisible. This would not stack with the Dead Ringer though. We do not want the old Dead Ringer. You can also toggle your speed between your disguise speed and your normal spy speed. So 1 second you can be a convincing heavy waddling along very slow and sluggishly, and the next thing you know you're heavy going at Mach 10 towards the medic's back. Now, the very main downside of these really great benefits are your disguise is on a timer, like a really short timer. I'd say a maximum of like 20 seconds. The timer would pause when invisible. You're also restricted to your melee until you shed your disguise. Now, a major downside of this that actually isn't built into the weapon, but it would make the Enforcer kinda useless as a combination, because the Enforcer has its main upside when you're disguised, but this when you're disguised you can only use your melee. So I guess TheWhat Show is gonna have to update this video if this ever became like a workshop item that got added, but thankfully I'm not a programmer despite being trans, so yeah, this will never be in the game. But you know, this downside of not being able to use your gun would probably not affect most spy players, as most spy players don't know that the revolver exists. It's me, I'm most spy players, I forget I have a gun. Hey, editing Rose here without the pop filter because I forgot to record an outro. But yes, this was very fun. I plan on doing the other TF2 classes sometime soon. My next few videos are Warframe themed. There'll be continuations of these 2 series. In fact, the Pokemon one won't be a continuation, but I'm redoing the designs because I'm not happy with them and my art's improved a lot, so that's what I'm gonna be doing, as well as drawing their evolutions. And a secret new 3rd one, or I guess, wait, I drew 3 before, so it'd be a 4th one. And a secret new 4th one. Ooh, scary, because it's Halloween, so I gotta mark this all as spooky. But yeah, this video had a lot of delays, mostly because I hated my original take of it. It was about 20 minutes long. The intro part took 4 minutes, and to put that into perspective, in this video, I almost finished talking about the sword at the 4-minute mark, so yeah. I rewrote the script 3 times. I also sound different, you might notice. I don't sound good, but I sound different because I've been remembering to do voice training. It was a struggle to talk for that long doing this, because normally I only do it for like 2 minutes at work when I'm on the phone, and so that's like the only place I ever use my more feminine voice, because it's kind of hard to do for long times when you don't practice, which I always forget to do. Yeah, so if I sounded nervous at all, it was mostly just a very shaky voice from doing it for so long. But yeah, this was so much fun. I don't know which class I'm gonna do next, so please comment down below which one you want to see, or suggestions for weapons for different classes. I'll definitely take them into consideration while making the next video on this, as well as your feedback on these weapons, because a lot of it I'm very unsure about, especially the downsides, because I have a problem when I make something that I need to balance for like a game, either overbalancing it and giving it too many downsides, or not enough downsides. So any and all feedback is welcome. But yeah, I'm back from the grave, plan on uploading every 10 days or so, about a week to do the art, and 3 days to do the editing and script writing and stuff. That's the schedule I'm planning for, but no promises. But if there's a gap in uploads, you can get updates on that in my Discord server, as well as see the work in progress of all the drawings, because, well, I'm not big enough to have a Patreon, so I can't put work in progresses there, and I like showing people stuff, so yeah, I just throw them in the work in progress channel in Discord. You can see them there, and the finished pieces early, as well as I have these fun secret streams in the general VC, where I just play a game and stream it in the VC with a few of my friends. It's really fun, especially because I'm not very good about streaming when I'm supposed to, which I now stream over here on YouTube, if you want to see. I don't have a schedule yet because work conflicts, but I'm trying. Anyways, here's that video I talked about in the beginning. Know that I appreciate your existence. Please keep on existing. I hope you have a good existence. Bye! Goodbye, hug.